Okay, brilliant. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new video. Uh, Probably the first video of the week on this channel since everyone seems to be taking a week off, which is fair enough. I just like to torture myself by doing this show. So yeah, on today's show we are talking about the story of Deportivo La Coruna, who, if you're not really into football or are too young to remember, they're a Spanish team, and they used to be in the top flight in Spain, and yeah, they ended up in the third division now, and this is due to a myriad of issues. But we're going to be basically talking about their history, well, relatively recent history, and essentially just going to show like how sad their downfall was, really. So hopefully you enjoy the video, and yeah, please make sure to stay subscribed to Mers FM for loads of great content for the next, let me see, 2 weeks. Next, approximately 6 weeks until we're off for the summer, I think. So yeah, hopefully you all enjoy the show. So yeah, we'll start off the story in 2000, where Deportivo La Coruña shocked the world when they captured the La Liga title. But now, as I mentioned, 2 decades later, they're in a battle to avoid relegation to the third tier. And just to kind of talk about the history of the club, pretty much half of the club's history has been out of the top flight in Spain. A golden era for them began with promotion for the first time in the late 1940s and peaked with a second place finish in 1949-50. And they would kind of become a yo-yo club in the 60s. And by 1981, they were relegated to the third division of Spanish football for the second time in 7 years. And they were in danger of completely fading away. And in the 1987-88 season, they were literally saved by a very late goal, which saved them. But at the same time, they were in deep financial trouble, and relegation in 1988 might have killed them off completely. But then things changed for the better in a rapid way under the presidency of the initially reluctant Augusto Cesar Lendoiro. The early 1990s brought back promotion to La Liga for the first time in 19 years. And while Deportivo initially struggled in the top flight, they slightly avoiding relegation to Real Betis in a two-legged playoff. They went to challenge for the title in the very next year, 1992-93. And this was all helped by the capture of Brazilian star Bebeto, who won that season's Pichichi Trophy, or what would we say here? PFA player. It's basically the Spanish version of PFA Player of the Year. And they also helped. They were also helped by future club legend Mauro Silva, who arrived from Brazil in 1992. And basically, what happened with Deportivo was they had a brilliant balance between rising stars like young players and established La Liga veterans, which you need for any important side. If you think about it, Man City, I guess, are the link between, or Liverpool, for example. They have a lot of very young players, but they also have quite a few established older players. So I'm sure, I guess a great comparison to think of before we had the massive injury crisis was we have Trent on one end of the scale, and then we have the older, more experienced guys like Van Dijk, who's 28, and Wijnaldum, and all these kinds of players. And this helps Deportivo a lot, and they should have won the league in the 1993-94 season, and they only didn't win the league because of a weak missed penalty from Miroslav Djukic in the closing stages of the final game of the season. And they lost that league title to Johan Cruyff's Barcelona Dream Team. So, obviously very good opposition to be facing against. A second place finish followed in the 1994-95 season, and third in the 1996-97 season. But the Super Deport era, which was looking to be waning by the end of the decade, actually came back to life. Because if you look at it, in 3 out of 5 seasons from the late 1990s, they finished outside of the top 5 in La Liga and as low as 12th in 1997-1998. Bebeto, who we mentioned before, left in 1996 when he returned to Brazil. But the club would get a new lease of life when manager Javi Irueta was appointed in 1998. Recruitment at the time was still smart, but it had moved away from the influx of Brazilians that had come to the club, and they moved towards younger Spanish or existing Spain-based players. And this included players like Victor, Manuel Pablo, and Enrique Romero. Serbian midfielder Slavica Jokanovic, who I think he's a manager in Serie A now, so he should hopefully some people remember where he is. I can't remember off the top of my head. And Dutch forward Roy Mackay, that's Makaay. Both came in from Tenerife in 1998 and 1999 respectively. Argentine forward Turu Flores came from Las Palmas. Fellow countryman Gabriel Schurer from Racing Santander. Portuguese striker Paulette from Salamanca, and Noureddine Naibet came across from the border in Portugal. And the 1999-2000 season was the season where Deportivo really seized their claim again. Only a late equaliser from Raúl stopped them beating Real Madrid at the Bernabeu in September, while Barcelona were beaten 2-1 at the Riazor, which is Deportivo's home ground, in October, thanks to a double from Mackay, who netted 22 times in the league that season. They would trash Madrid at home in February 5-2 and beat Valencia in March. Both clubs would represent Spain in the 2000 Champions League final in Paris at the end of the season. And Deportivo sealed their historic title on the final day of the season by beating Espanyol. They only needed a point to do it, but unlike in previous times, they made absolutely sure with a 2-0 win, with Mackay scoring again. So Mackay is coming in with the goods, I guess. And this paved the way for a more consistent era of Deportivo strength. In the 1990s, second and third place finishes had been, as I mentioned before, it had been almost a yo-yo, with second and third place finishes coming in with ninth and 12th finishes. But between 1999 and 2004, the club were a top 3 La Liga side for 5 consecutive seasons, and no other team was able to match that at the time. The title winners are boosted during these years with the arrival of big players such as Diego Tristan, Walter Pandiani, and Jorge Andrade. And in their first ever Champions League season in 2000-2001, they reached the quarterfinals, topping the group stage in the process at the expense of Juventus and AC Milan. And they would again reach the last 8 in 2002, but they fell to Man United at that stage, even though they had beaten the Red Devils home and away in the first group stage. But yeah, from the looks of it, Manchester United would become Deportivo's stumbling block. They faced them 6 times across the 2 Champions League seasons, winning 3 and losing 3. They were without doubt at the time one of the best and most potent sides in all of Europe. And after 39 goals across all competitions, Mackay was actually poached by Bayern for close to 20 million, which was a club record fee for the Germans. However, that wouldn't really affect Deportivo that much. They would go on to the Champions League semi-finals with their former top scorer, producing one of their greatest all-time comebacks in the quarterfinals to beat AC Milan 5-4 in aggregate. In the end, they would lose to Jose Mourinho's Porto by 1 single penalty. After that, things began to unravel for Deportivo. The breakup of a second-grade team was inevitable, and they fell away after 2004 to become a more mid-table La Liga side, finishing no higher than 7th between then and their eventual return to the Segunda Division in 2011. Like many others, just off the top of my head, I can think of the likes of Bolton. Bolton will be the most the example that will come quickest to me, but yeah, I'm sure you can think of loads of other clubs that have been failures. or have been. They've come up and then they've gone swiftly down again. And Deportivo have paid the price. While I have mentioned that they did sign a load of good players, they did have a lot of very suspect ones, and they had poor leadership as well. And the early 2010s saw another yo-yo existence, while 4 consecutive seasons back in La Liga all ended in a relegation fight, following where they fell into the second tier in 2008, with Clarence Seedorf as manager. And obviously, we all hear these things like former legends coming in to manage teams and it never works out. We think of Tony Adams and Granada, and this happened as well with Deportivo La Coruña and Clarence Seedorf. And they've been struck by death ever since, really. And now it's been 32, now after that late escape that I mentioned 32 years ago, Deportivo are literally back where they started. And it almost, after a massive roller coaster ride, it almost feels like they're literally just back to step one again. And hopefully, I hope everyone hopes as well, that they'll be able to build themselves back up and hopefully get back to La Liga one day, and maybe try and reach the lofty achievements that they reached in those 4 years between 2000 and 2004. So that is the story of Deportivo La Coruña. If you want to look up more, there's great articles on it by Sky Sports and The Athletic. And you can always use different apps to check on Deportivo La Coruña's progress as well. And I'm not sure about yous, but I'll be definitely looking at their progress for the years to come. And hopefully they won't get relegated again, even though it's not really looking great at the minute. So yeah, that was the episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. And I will see you all next week, where we'll be talking about another football story. Goodbye, everyone, and have a great weekend.